Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of the MOPG podcast. I'm excited today to get to spend some time with both Kevin and Ryan from Clouser Drilling and James from Rogue Valley Pump Service. And warning, this is going to be a long episode because we're talking about wells and there's a lot of detail to it, but I think there's a lot of really useful information for anyone who's going to either currently lives on a well, may live on a well, is interested in buying a piece of property that is their private water source is a well. So this is a whole conversation about well construction, what you're looking for if you're drilling a new well, pumps and building systems and filtration and top 35 tests and minerals and arsenic and all these different things. So I would highly encourage you guys to tune in. This is going to be, like I said, a longer episode, probably a 2-part episode, and there's going to be a lot of detail in it, but I think it's going to be really good. And I just appreciate you guys tuning in. Look forward to getting into this. Thank you. Today, I just want to circle into this topic of wells, and I want to introduce the gentleman we have here and kind of the background, because what's cool is I was thinking about this as I was driving here was how much history there actually is with both your companies, but also like you and I going way back, and your dad when I met him, when you sold your pump business to these guys, and like there's just a whole bunch of background I'd love to unpack. So first off, I want to introduce just everybody's here. So Kevin Gill, Clouser Drilling, Ryan, his son, and then James with Rogue Valley Pump Service. And you guys want to take a minute and just kind of introduce yourselves briefly, companies, what you do, and then let's just conversationally unpack how we know each other and just give everybody a little background. So Kevin, do you want to
Sounds great,
jump
Chris.
in?
Yeah, Kevin, Clouser Drilling. Been in business since 1971. I'm currently the owner. Ryan is a very key part of our organization. We're family owned. I started on a drill rig in 1980.
Really?
At one point, and then came back here. Have been managing the business for 23 years and enjoy every bit of it. It's a great business. And what's more important to people's livelihood and well-being than fresh groundwater?
Mm-hmm. How many rigs are you running now?
We have 4 drill rigs.
Okay, 4 drill rigs.
It's interesting. So we were just talking before the start recording, and I was thinking back to when I first met you, and I realized I was probably this big, and we had a well pump go out, and on a Sunday, you dropped one off. This must have been early 90s sometime. That was my first memory of, Kevin with Clouser. And then,
Yeah, and that would have actually probably been my dad.
Would it?
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been Chuck. Yeah, because I came back here in 2003.
Okay. So Clouser. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying. My 5-year-old memory did not have that correct.
I've known you since you were a kid.
Anyway, I was thinking about also, so you guys sold the pump business in what year?
It was 2012.
So you came back in 2003 and went back into work with your dad, right?
Yeah.
And you guys had 1 rig at that time?
Yeah.
Wow.
And a home office at the kitchen table.
And a home office at the kitchen table. So 22 years later, that's cool. That's been a good run.
Yeah, we've enjoyed it. And working with quality business partners that are committed to providing a good service for a fair price is key. And of course, we've always respected, James, your company. And
that's been a good relationship long term, right? Because Dad and John started Rogue Valley Pump in 96. So I would have been like a sophomore. So I grew up doing it for summer job and then left for a number of years, college and other stuff. And then I came back 05. So just a couple years after, and started working with the business again. And then, you said it was 12 when you guys approached us?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that was really cool. So I don't even know if you know this, but that was a point in my life where I was trying to decide, like, am I going to do this full time, or is this going to be something, and like my wife and I are praying about it, trying to figure things out. Then when you approached Dad and John saying, hey, I want to go just drilling. I want to do what I do best and let you guys do what you do. They approached me and were like, well, this is actually an opportunity for you to buy in as an owner. So that's when I actually got to become an owner.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So for me, that was a huge thing, because it's like, now I'm not just working in the family business. I bought in at that point. So 12, that's 13 years ago.
So, and that was the connection point when I met you guys, was when you came to our office one day. So I got in the business in 2008. That would have been 2012. You came in and said, hey, I got good news. I'm selling my pump business. We're going to focus on drilling and drilling only. And I want you to meet Dave, James's dad. And, we're handing our business off to them. You'll be in good hands. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I only really was using you guys. And
right.
I was still newer to the business. And then I met Dave and I'm like, wow, this guy's really organized. This guy's really on it. Hey, customers are really happy with the service being provided.
Yeah.
This is great. Maybe it was a good idea for you guys to just focus on
I will humbly,
one thing.
I will humbly say I think that they were a better pump company than we were. And your dad actually reached out to me at one point on a job. They had a client that had coliform and E. coli in a well.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, can we drill a new well on Coutant for this customer? And we partnered together, and that was how everything got started.
That's
Back that was about 2007.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of history, I guess.
Yep.
I think that's how it is just in these smaller towns, the culture here, good companies get together and consistently work together. And that's what I've seen. And
well, that's the thing that you run into. Like we pride ourselves, Rogue Valley Pump, we really pride ourselves on customer service. And so then when people ask me for a referral, there's some people I'm like, oh, great. Like, you can call Chris. Like, he will take care of you as a realtor. He'll return your calls. He'll follow through. You can call Clouser Drilling. They will take care of you. And then people are like, oh, can you recommend a company for Y? And I'm like, kind of.
They get the point.
Like, I'm not saying they don't, but like you're not going to get. And I don't like someone calling me like, well, you recommended such and such, and they haven't called me back. I'm like, I'm not playing middleman.
Well, there's certain industries I introduced it as, well, here's the deal. You're not going to be impressed by this company that I'm going to recommend.
Right.
But they're the best. You have to trust me on it.
Right.
And the service is going to be average, but that's the nature of that
industry
and that industry. So
I was just going to talk about Ryan for a second.
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
had grown up in the business kind of like I did. And then I went to college and was in the food industry for a few years like James.
We were.
Ryan loved the business. He's a mechanical engineer, graduated from Oregon Tech, had a good job with Eaton Corporation, but he came back here 5 years ago.
Yep, 2021.
And he has brought a lot of great, fresh ideas. And I'm just really excited about the direction of our company. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And the whole purpose of this conversation today, is water and wells, private wells. So, rural property, domestic water source. And I think just to hone in on a couple of things, outside of location, in my mind, water is probably the next most difficult thing to deal with if it's not good.
Oh,
so like a septic system fails, you replace it. You don't like the house, rebuild it, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Run out of water. What do? Discover you have some contaminant issue. What do you do? And I think unpacking that today, I'd like to take some of the mystery out of water would be my hope in this conversation. However long this needs to run to kind of unpack these topics. I'd love it if we could start with you, Kevin, and just kind of go over kind of an overview of let's start with groundwater.
Sure.
Like we're talking about wells, but let's talk about where those wells actually get their water. Like what does it do? Where does groundwater come from? What does the ground look like around here? Unpack that.
Okay, that sounds great. Groundwater is one of the viable freshwater sources on the earth. The earth is 78% water on the surface. Only 3% of the surface water is fresh, right? And that's the lakes and the rivers and streams. 97% is salt water. And the ground actually has more fresh water than there is on the surface on the earth. So water finds the weak point, and it does that in the ground too. It finds open space, porosity, permeability, places where it can both move and be transmitted and it can be stored. And the goal when you're drilling a well is to tap into a good source of fresh water at a reasonable depth. So you've got to find, if you're drilling in the mountains and you've got a bedrock aquifer, you've got to find water in the fractures. If you're in the low valleys, you're in alluvial aquifers, which are gravels and sands. One example would be the Redwood area. Great water. And those are shallower wells. They're only like 100 feet deep. But groundwater is such a mystery. In some areas, it's easy to find a good well. In some areas, it's not, because Southern Oregon has the most diverse geology in the state. We have alluvial aquifers, we have igneous and volcanic rocks, we have sedimentary rocks, we have metamorphic rocks, and some are better than others for water quantity and quality, which James will know a lot about what happens when you hit the water, what kind of water you're going to have. But
how often do you know, like walking into a property, let's say I call you with an address, like how well, because of all your experience, and how well will you know, oh, that's going to be an alluvian aquifer, or that's going to be a bedrock, or like how, like, is it pretty second
well.
nature at this point?
Pretty well.
Yeah, we know, we've drilled, we're getting ready to hit the 5,000 well mark in Southern Oregon.
Oh my
and
goodness.
so I can tell you that we've drilled all over, and we know these areas really well. Not only the ability to get a good well, but how to construct it so that it lasts over the long haul, and where to say that's deep enough so you don't hit the salt water.
Right. Yeah, and that's a big difference.
So what kind of formation you're drilling in is going to be a big indicator a lot of times of how much water you're going to get and potentially the quality of the water. So to James' question, a lot of times, if we're drilling in shales or things like that, we know we're probably not going to get much water and it may be poor quality.
And so when you say formation, you mean just basically what kind of rock?
What kind of rock?
What kind of rock?
Or overburden.
Can I show you a picture
What's
real
overburden?
quick? This might help. This is related. This is the geological map of Josephine County, Ryan. If you can help.
Wow.
Each color represents a different geologic formation. And so a real quick overview, see the yellow in there?
Yeah.
Those are the alluvial aquifers. Those are the
that's the
gravels
sand and gravel.
sands. Yep.
Okay.
The pink is the granitic aquifers, the igneous felsic rocks.
Right.
They're good for water, but usually deeper.
And cleaner. They're pretty clean, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's granite. Yeah, they tend to be.
And some of the darker shades, I can't get too much into it without going to the deep dive. But you've got you've got shales, which are sedimentary rock, and a pore rock to get water out of. You've got ultramafic rocks, which are unique to this area, like on an $8 mountain, Airport Drive. That's a serpentine.
Yeah.
Also that you see in the Mount Sexton Pass. But anyway, I thought this might.
So I put my eyes on a beautiful piece of property. It's bare. It's got nothing on it. I call you guys up and I say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Like, what do you think about a well? Is it always a site visit, or is it most of the time you can kind of have an idea ahead of time? Like, oh, that's a pretty good area, or like, what's the process there? Like step 2, like, I like this piece of property. It's got a beautiful view. It's got some trees. My wife wants me to build her dream house on it. I call you up. Is it site visit next? Is it?
I love it. If someone's really interested and they're very serious, it is a site visit for sure.
Okay.
Even if they decide not to do it, we'll be honest with them. We'll give them on the water. We'll say, hey, not a good area. If I were you, I would run, not walk.
So a lot of these people are coming from other areas, right? Can you compare and contrast maybe a little bit of the difference between a lot of people coming from either California or back east? Can you compare and contrast Southern Oregon to other areas?
We are licensed in Northern California, and we drill in a lot of areas. So most of the people we get that move up here, and James can attest to this, and Ryan, and you too, it's their first rural property. It's their dream. They've lived in the city. They've worked their whole life, and they want to have 5 or 10 acres and a tractor and a little barn and some animals. And so most of them have never been on a well. Their experience is turning on this heavily chlorinated and treated city water and not enjoying the geological cocktail that we provide.
Totally.
And and some of them have come from areas. Maybe they have owned a farm, and I've got a 2,000 gallon a minute well down in Central California. And so that's a different perspective. In the Rogue Valley, we're not going to get 2,000 gallons a minute. We could drill as big a well as we want. About the max is 300 or 400 gallons a minute. Go east of the Cascades in the Klamath.
Bigger pump as you can get down there.
3 to 10,000 gallons a minute over there.
I could be wrong on this, but I've always kind of described it to people who don't know, like, okay, you're not drilling into a lake, you're drilling into a stream or a creek or a river.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the difference. And people will be like, well, how come my neighbor has this amount? I said, well, because you could be standing in a creek right there, and I could be standing here and my feet are dry and you're up to your knees.
Yeah.
So I think a common misconception, a lot of people use the term water table, which isn't correct for where we're at. So, you get into parts of California and it's like, okay, we drill X amount of feet, my neighbor's X amount of feet, and then there's just a flat table in this unconsolidated aquifer that you're tapping into.
Gotcha.
And it's not quite that simple here. A lot of our aquifers are under pressure, in which, you've got correctly called an artesian aquifer,
right,
as opposed to a flowing artesian, which actually comes over the top.
Okay.
But so where you hit the water and where the water rises to are different.
That's always called an artesian. If it rises from where you hit it.
If it rises higher than where you hit it.
Okay, see, I learned something. I did not know that. I figured it was, flowing artesian is out the top.
Flowing artesian
but artesian at all is when it rises, which is almost
anytime there's static increase in the shaft. Is an
artesian well by definition.
Well.
Yep. So one thing that's a misconception is, people think, well, my neighbor, especially when you get into the bedrock aquifers, is, well, my neighbor's well's 200 foot, and so my well should be 200 foot, and it's not quite that simple. It depends on where you hit those fracture zones, where you're going to get the water. So you could have some pretty big variations between well depths.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the mountains.
I want to bring something up. James brought up something that triggered me. People talk about wells, and my neighbor has this, and sometimes they'll base that off a well log. A well that might have been drilled in 1960 may not be producing what it does now. And most commonly is about a 10 gallon a minute pump in a well. So wells can be like fish stories where neighbors they want bragging rights, and it may not be the true picture. And by James working on pumps all the time, knowing in real time what this well's doing now, and us having our experience, it just gives us a wealth of knowledge of what's really going on.
I want to circle back to that and unpack that as we continue this conversation, but I think let's quickly kind of go through a little bit of the mechanicals of actually well construction, and then also move over to kind of the pump system, so we can get that kind of out of the way for anyone who doesn't understand what a drill well actually looks like. Can you kind of walk us through? Actually, let's back up first thing, because this is a question I get all the time, especially with sellers' property disclosures. What does the permitting process look like to get a well?
I'm going to let Ryan handle that.
Yeah, go ahead. So the state of Oregon is actually who governs water wells. It's not Josephine County, it's not Jackson County, it's the state. So the well driller is responsible for putting in what's called a start card, which is essentially, and this is for a domestic use well, we're talking about what you'd use for your house, not irrigating crops or anything like that. That requires a water right, which is different.
Now, hold on, point of clarification. That's your house plus half an acre? Is
So-
that what the definition is there?
Yes, as long as you are not commercially watering.
Well,
Okay.
let's define exempt use in a second.
Okay. So domestic, gotcha.
So the permitting process, so you don't have to ask permission. You just go in and make application
Correct.
and deliver the start card.
So for a domestic use well for your house, you go in, you submit a start card, and then there's a waiting period for that, and then the well driller's responsible for collecting the fees. But there's not a long permitting process.
And they don't have the option to tell you no?
No,
Okay.
they cannot reject you for a
And
domestic well.
one clarification point, I think it's interesting. So in many other areas, like you have to ask permission to drill a well. Here you can drill the well. The other thing, coming back to the exempt use or what you can use it for, you can drill 5 wells on one property, but that doesn't change the allowed use, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so you can drill as many holes, you're still governed by the same overarching limitations of exempt use.
Per well.
Yeah, I want to qualify that statement. In Oregon, there are some areas now, not in southern Oregon yet, but some areas that are designated critical groundwater areas, and there are limitations, Chris, like you're speaking of, where you do need to ask permission, but you do need to be able to meet all the proper setbacks, which we know all that. And then there's an additional fee for exempt use wells. There's the permit, which is the start card Ryan talked about. Then there's also a $300 exempt use recording fee that the driller collects too, and you make a map showing, which for the new wells is handy. James can go out and know where the well's at.
Those are nice.
They are.
Yeah.
So, but the fee justification of $300 I think was a little excessive when they instituted that, but that's my opinion.
The fact we can just go drill a well is still pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
in Josephine and Jackson County, that is a good clarifier.
Yeah,
Which
you
is
go
what
up
we're talking
north,
about.
there's some more.
Some critical groundwater areas is what they call them. Yeah.
To touch on the water rights for a second, so I'm using the word exempt use. That's what I've always seen it as.
That's correct.
Exempt use describes the domestic use, so your household use. It describes stock water, which is like 15,000 gallons a day, and it involves your half acre of private use, your personal use, landscaping or garden.
Yep.
Is that accurate? It's amazing.
There's some more stipulations in there, but that's a good summary of it.
Okay.
I would say.
Can I make a comment? So you can stack exemptions as well. So the exempt use domestic well means it's exempt from needing a water right permit, which have conditions attached. But you have the 15,000 gallons a day, you have a half an acre, but you can also get stock watering exemptions that stack on top of that, in addition to the half acre and the 15,000 gallons. So
and that's on the stock water side.
Yep.
So what I always tell people, and please jump in and correct me if I have a misstep here, basically for the irrigation use of an exempt well, it's for personal use. The second you go to make an income from that use,
that's
you need a
correct.
water right. And I don't care if it's 5 square feet or
Very
500
well said.
acres.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. It's when you begin to do a commercial application, so any kind of farming application for profit. Correct?
Yep. And that, as the laws are currently written, we're involved with the Oregon Groundwater Association, so we monitor some legislation, and there's been talks about allowing small farms to do up to the sizes varying half an acre to an acre is what they're discussing. That may happen, it may not, because right now water rights are very, very tough to get, nearly impossible. And so it's very difficult for somebody who's selling tomatoes at the Saturday market to have to, undergo the same things as a big commercial operation.
I'm so grateful for, you guys know Holly Cannon?
Yeah.
Okay, so Holly mentored me in the whole water rights sector, and I'm so grateful for his expertise because I couldn't do my job without that.
Yeah, he's a good CWRE.
Yeah, retired now, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I don't want to go any further into the water right conversation because that's a whole nother hour-long conversation.
But the short of it is, it's pretty simple if you want to drill a domestic well on a piece of property.
Absolutely.
And
That's until you start drilling. Then it gets complicated.
And the short of it is they're not issuing, thanks to the groundwater allocation project in Oregon, there will be little to no new water right in Oregon.
Correct.
Right.
Well, especially on the west side. Yeah. So switching from the permission to do it, talk us through what it looks like just from start to finish, like first visit to completed well. Can you guys give us the high level version of the actual construction process?
Sure. I'll just talk about real quick what a well is. It's a borehole that's drilled or dug into the ground and to reach groundwater. And there are construction standards that are there to protect the groundwater from possible contamination. Mm-hmm. And so, that's a whole nother subject, but there's a lot more. Sometimes people will call and say, I want a hole in the ground. Well, if they're not careful, that's just what they'll get.
That's all they'll get. Right? Yeah.
But not a good viable well.
Yeah.
So, but when we're meeting with the customer, and James can attest to this, we have a really great office staff. So people call into our office and say, hey, I'm interested in this piece of property. First of all, we try to find out who they're working with on the pump side, who the realtor is. And if they're lucky enough to have a good realtor like yourself that does a lot of legwork and homework. And then we want to find out, where the property is, what their plans are. And if they're really serious, like I said, we pull together all the maps, all the well logs, plot everything out and make a file. And then we try to set up a site visit with them and go out on the site and try to just figure out the best place to drill based on their plans. A lot of times we're talking to people that are doing a replacement well because their old well had failed. And here's a misconception too. Everything gets blamed on climate change and the drought, and my well went dry. And James will know this too, and Ryan. A lot of wells fail because they were improperly constructed. And so they've caved in on the liner and plugged the perforations off, or they're mineral fouled.
Right.
And we can fix them again. So not everything's climate change and not everything's dry well. And so
not everything's your neighbor stealing water either.
That's right. I've had neighbors stealing water where they say the neighbor's stealing water and there's no pump in the new well yet. So
yeah. Well, and you might want to loop back around to this later, or this might be the time, but you're talking about how very often you're going out to bid a well on someone whose well has failed.
Yep.
And the first question, because I'm normally first point of contact on that, because I'm the one who tell them, like, sorry, it's not your pump. There's no water for me to pump. I can't help you with that, which is my least favorite call. But at least I know who to have them call after that. But the first question they always ask me is, well, can I have it deepened? Can I just deepen my existing well? And most of the time, that's not what we want to do.
That's a great thing to get into. So, the first question is going to be, can we legally deepen it? So the thing about deepening is we have to bring that well up to current construction standards. So what we do is we look at the well log.
If there is one.
If there is one. So if there is a well log, we look at it and say, does this meet current construction standards? If there's not a well log, we would camera it and try and get an idea of the construction of the well. So most of the times, if it doesn't meet current standards, there's so much work to undo all of that, you're better off picking a new spot.
Right.
If it does meet standards, then what we're looking at is this a good place to drill?
Right.
Does this make sense?
Did we pick a bad spot to begin with?
Yes. Do we like the spot?
is there access to the well?
Is there access to the well?
Well, as well.
Very
Can you get that thing?
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
Some wells, as you know, James, are in a house or a garage or a pump house.
Yeah.
Which we recommend not doing.
Yeah, so we would look at that. There's times where absolutely deepening makes sense and is the best option. I would say more often than not, you're looking at a new well, but it really just depends on the original construction, how old the well is, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be completely uncommon to drill a new well in fairly close proximity to that first well if it was in an appropriate vein, but the construction was not appropriate, correct?
Potentially.
That's true, because one of the advantages of that, if it was a productive well in the past and looks like a good area, is that James doesn't have as hard a time getting the power to the new well and the water line back to the system.
Well, you probably have a pretty good idea what the water quality, not to get into that yet, is going to be.
Water chemistry can change so much that it can be a trend, but not 100%.
Yeah. So just keep walking us through kind of that construction process. So you went to the property, you met the people, whether it's a new well or a replacement well, you've picked a location. How do you pick that location?
One of the things is we look at setbacks from septic drain fields need to be 100%. Sewer lines and septic tanks 100 feet, 50 feet from the sewer, the septic tank and the sewer lines. And then also any kind of, you don't want water pooling and sitting near the wellhead, but getting near a drainage or draw or having a big drainage area, recharge area above where you're going to drill can be a good spot. Having room to fit that and another truck. And then
what's the property line setbacks?
20 feet.
Oh, 20 feet.
That's the
property line.
suggested.
Okay, that's not much.
No, it's not.
Sometimes on smaller lots, it's like a puzzle trying to get away from the septics. And the reality is if you can get on the property and you're comfortable, you're on the property, then you're good.
Do you suggest people have their property resurveyed if it's a little bit? Because
Yes.
I've heard stories where people put a well on someone else's property.
We've got one right now. We are in Cave Junction drilling a well for a lady, and the property she bought had a well on it, but another driller had went in and thought they were on that property and drilled, and it was 20 feet on the neighbor's property. So that well,
That's a whole nother conversation of Oregon law and whose well is that. And
yeah, they
use
resurveyed it,
and
and it's his now.
we have one in escrow right now that the neighbor drilled a well on the flagpole, and our clients who are buying are saying, no, I'm not going to be unneighborly and fight you over it. Let's just trade. You have that well, give me a power easement, we'll be good.
Oh,
So it just depends on how.
that's good if you
people
can
look
work that out.
Yeah. So you look at the geography, I'll call it, the topography of an area. What else do you look at?
We look at vegetation. Sometimes there's some great clues. There's vegetation that loves water, cedar trees love water. You can look at ferns, maples, and things like that. Big oaks, lining those up. People will say, well, that's surface water, but it's still evidence of hydraulicking in the soil.
Gotcha.
So we look at that. And then we also, big considerations is how do you want to use this well? Where do you want to go with it? How will we get it there? Because I think about that stuff and James really gets into
That becomes my problem.
Yeah.
But James doesn't want me to pick a spot 4,000 feet from the.
I don't.
I do sometimes.
But we want water.
That's right.
And we've done it every once in a while.
That's right.
Right? Because a well that's 4,000 feet away that makes water is better than a dry one next to your house.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right. You got to have something to pump.
You do. I can't help without that.
And then, so once you picked a location, now do you guys also douse or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that for those?
Yes. If you go on U.S. Geological Survey's website and Scientific, they say there's nothing to back it up, but it has worked well for us. That's usually the last thing we do, though. We do all these other things first and study the well logs and the geology. But dowsing, I use a forked stick that's fibrous like an oak or a willow or a nut tree. And the earth has an electromagnetic field. And to get groundwater, you got to have fractures or fissures in the rock. And that dowsing process for some people, because of the way they're charged, can find those voids. And I don't think it finds the water. I think it finds the voids.
So years ago, I met Kevin on a job.
Yeah.
And he gets his stick out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, does that really even work?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, I don't know. Let's see if it works for you. So I'm walking around. It does nothing for me, of course. So Kevin goes, well, let's do this. He goes, I'll have one half the stick. You have one half the stick. And then we'll hold hands. Slightly awkward. So we're walking through the field. It's CJ.
I'm a salesman.
And the stick tries to jump out of my hand because it was doing his thing. And I'm like, all right, the voodoo works.
More importantly, did we get water?
We got water.
Yeah.
We got water.
So I had a similar experience with a 90-year-old guy who lived on the river and had a property. He's like, wait, I need to find this irrigation line. And he pulls out these two copper rods and he's 90 years old. He walks them. All of a sudden they just drop. He's like, here, check it out. Watch this. It's right here. And I walked across and it pulled. I'm like, okay.
All right. You got it.
Yep.
It wouldn't have dropped for me. I don't have the electrical magnetic intercharge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'd say a clarifying point, like Dad said, is we don't bet all of our chips on dowsing.
Totally.
There's a lot of things we use to pinpoint a location and then really refine it with the dowsing. So not your entire project cost is not all bet on a willow
No,
stick.
I wanted to lead with that, but it's all on that.
It's all the willow. No.
Yeah,
But it's like confirmation.
it's confirmation.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And the other thing too about finding a location, you have to be capable with your equipment and your staff to construct the well to hold up over the long haul. And in some places, getting your casing where it needs to go is very difficult. We can talk more about that, but those are some of the considerations too. Which rig we send out, which crew, which tool set to handle. We can handle anything here, but not everybody can.
Well, and 5,000 wells gives you a really good, like you know what I mean? You can't buy that kind of experience when you're trying to pick spots.
So you pick the spot, the dowsing worked.
Right.
And, so you set up for construction. I'm assuming this is a 1-day process, 2-day process. Talk to me about the actual construction.
It depends on the well. So there's generally, it's not black and white, but 2 types of wells I would say we drill here. So either in an unconsolidated formation in the valleys, and these would be wells in the gravels. And typically what you're going to have here is you're going to have the steel casing that you see above ground is going to go the entire length of the bore or nearly to the bottom. And you might have some perforations in there, and then the water comes through those perforations or through the bottom of the well.
Okay.
So that's one construction. Those are typically going to be shallow, maybe 140 foot or less.
Okay.
And then the other type is going to be in a consolidated formation. So this is drilling into bedrock. So in those, what you're going to have is your steel is actually going to be cased and sealed into that bedrock. And then you're going to drill what we call open hole below. And that is just, we're just cutting a hole through the bedrock, and you'll just have a bore.
So you guys are required to case down a certain amount, correct? No matter what
We are. There's a lot of rules that get a little complex, I think too complex for this conversation of where we need to case and seal. But the casing amount and the seal amount will change depending on what kind of formation we're drilling in.
Well, and one thing I'd like to add is there are standards, but the standards are the minimums, right?
Yes.
And one of the things I've loved about working with these guys is I've worked with a ton of drillers and a lot of people, because they're trying to make the cost as low as possible, then they're going to go with the lowest standard, which does not give you the best well.
Yeah.
And so when I come in after these guys have drilled one, what I know is the amount of casing isn't because that's what the law said, it's because that's what this formation and area needed. And that's maybe why the price was different on the bids, but it's why I know that well is going to hold up when I put a pump in there, and I'm going to get the amount, and I'm not going to get a call 3 weeks later to be like, I've started watering my garden and it just quit. And I'm like, well, it's because it doesn't make the amount of water that you were told it made.
Well, and one thing I want to talk about, because you said once you pick the spot, there's a couple other key things that have to happen before we drill. We get utility notification locates, so we'll mark it for make sure there's no public utilities in there. And then we'll also do the best we can to survey the situation and make sure there doesn't appear, or based on the knowledge of the area, if there's already stuff there, that there isn't any private stuff in there, power coming through, water lines, different things. And then we do pull the septic plans, because people think, well, I think it's over there, but I'm not sure. And if there's a septic plan available, we go online and find that too.
One quick point just about what James said is the state standards, the state actually, there's conflicting goals there. They don't really care about the production of the well for the homeowner. That is not in their interest at all. They care about protecting the groundwater resources, which is really important. So they don't want contaminants getting into the aquifers, which is very important.
So why would a poorly constructed well put contaminants in an aquifer?
There's a bunch of different reasons. So I mean, short cased, short sealed, you could have commingling, where you're actually allowing 2 different aquifers.
So you've drilled down and you've now allowed the surface water to make it into the groundwater because you didn't separate those two? Is that kind of...
So the most common driller-induced contaminant is going to be a bad sanitary seal. So you're allowing surface water to leach down the side of that casing and come into your well bore.
And the reason we don't want that is because your well's in the middle of Timbuktu and some deer died next to your well and you have no idea. If you're sealed properly, you don't have a problem. But if you're not sealed properly, that gets also into your well and other people's wells potentially.
Horse manure,
animals.
I mean,
right.
failed septics.
Right.
And
I mean, I'd like to say I've never seen a customer put a chicken coop over their well, but that would be a lie.
That happens very frequently.
Well, if we think about it, the biggest water quality issues we see in the valley have to do with, call it irrigation runoff related issues going into like Little Butte Creek is a huge problem.
Right.
Nitrate levels, bacteria levels, everything is too high. One, people have cut too many trees back, so the water temperature gets too high. Then you got 90-degree irrigation water running into those creeks. So that's a huge problem in Southern Oregon. It's the same thing you're trying to alleviate with the well is nitrates, bacteria, all those other things. It seems like the most common thing that could really foul up a well would be irrigation water going in, like flood irrigation or something that's a high volume of water going down into that shaft.
If it's not sealed correctly.
Sure.
Well, and we have another example would be drilling through a viable water bearing zone that's fresh. And this can happen in Selma where you grew up and I grew up. And drilling down into a saltwater aquifer and allowing that intrusion to upflow into the good. And that's where experience matters too, because saltwater is so difficult to deal with.
So there's definitely driller-induced water quality problems that can happen, which is why it's important to work with a quality contractor. And then there are just things that are inherent to
The water.
and to that particular location.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Absolutely.
So when you guys set up, it's a rotary drilling rig. So you're literally drilling a hole in the ground as it sounds. A couple other, so every now and then we see old hand dug wells. I'll just touch on that for a second. And then there are also, what is it? Is it the hammer? What's that old school way?
Cable tool.
A cable tool.
Yep.
So those are really the three things we see, correct?
Yeah, I would
Well
say most
construction.
commonly in Southern Oregon. Yeah, one of those three. Yep.
And then you guys obviously are using rotary drilling for a reason. It's
Yeah, so rotary drilling is the most modern drilling method. So how we drill specifically is rotary air. So this rig has a big air compressor we can see behind us. And so our drill stem turns and we plumb air down the center of that.
Gotcha.
And that runs a tool at the bottom of the hole. A lot of times it could be a hammer, it could be a tricone, several different tools. And then it actually returns the cuttings to the surface. That air blows everything back up to the surface. And it's very effective for the conditions we have here.
So in kind of your worst case scenario type, hard rock soil, how long does it take start to finish to drill, say, a 300-foot well?
Yeah, let's say average. There's several things that can skew that. A big thing would be how much casing you're going to put in and how deep you have to seal. But our average well, domestic well, is 1 to 3 days.
Okay.
So, we could drill certain 300-footers in a day. Could take 3 days for certain 300-footers. Or if you get really high in the mountains, you may have wells going up to 1,000 foot. And that may take 3 or 4 days. Typically.
So the range is kind of 1 to 4 days.
1 to 4 days.
Okay.
4 being a little more extreme.
The average 300-foot well with 40 feet of casing can generally be done in 1 day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And around here, especially in the valleys, right?
Yep. Yeah. And a thing to note is the average well we drill is just over 300 foot.
So with that, can you give me kind of a ballpark cost estimate, like a range, not an exact number, of, say, that basic 40-foot casing, 300-foot deep well?
So your range would be in the $12,000 to $15,000 range for that well.
And I think I've seen a couple of your projects where we went 500-foot deep and had a little more challenges, push up into the 25 range. That's kind of what I've seen as a ceiling, 25 to 30.
Yeah, I mean, we've drilled these big, large irrigation wells too in Eastern Oregon. That take 3 months and they're a lot different. Yeah.
Well, that's tens of thousands of,
Yes.
hundreds of thousands of dollars. But you're also talking about a hole in the ground that's what, 16 inch? 16 inch.
Yeah.
In weeks or months.
And drilled
And
with
they're-
rotary mud.
And they're putting a pump down there that will do 500 gallons per minute.
Some of them will put pumps in that are 3,000 gallons.
Oh, my goodness.
Line shaft turbines.
Yeah, I don't do any of that.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the cost varies. And James talked about it earlier. There's no shortcut to quality, and that includes the price. A fair deal and a square deal is one that's good for the client and good for the contractor.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the square deal.
Well, I just want to get some context to, like, an inexpensive well would be 10. An expensive well around here would be 30. Is that a fair range?
I would expand that a little. I'd say inexpensive could go down to $6,000 and then expensive up to 40.
Okay.
Would you agree with
I
that?
think that's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what else do you guys want to touch on the well construction side before we talk about pumps?
I think it's really important for someone looking for property to call us before they buy and make a decision as doing their due diligence and find out what we know about the area.
Yeah.
We will return their phone call and we'll give them the best information possible.
Well, I think when we get towards the end, I want to hear your guys' take on if you were buying the property, but let's table that till we get through about some of these more topics.